Imagine a man so feared that his enemies believed he was sent by the gods to punish them. A man whose descendants number in the millions, and whose military tactics are still studied today. Genghis Khan was more than a conqueror. He was a force of nature. But there's more to his story than blood and war. Here are some of the most shocking and little-known details about the man who built the largest land empire in history. Genghis Khan was born as Temujin in the year 1162. His early life was brutal. His father, a tribal leader, was poisoned when Temujin was just 9 years old, and his family was abandoned by their own people. They were left to starve on the harsh Mongolian steppes. At one point, Temujin was captured and enslaved by a rival clan. He eventually escaped and survived against impossible odds. It is estimated that around 16 million men alive today carry Genghis Khan's DNA. Genetic studies have found a Y chromosome lineage that can be traced back to him, spanning across Asia and beyond. His empire encouraged a mix of cultures and peoples, but it also meant Genghis fathered many children, often through the conquest of new lands. The spread of his bloodline is one of the most astonishing genetic legacies in history. Genghis Khan didn't just win battles, he controlled minds. His army used terrifying tactics to break enemy morale before a fight even began. He would send spies ahead of his forces to spread rumors of his army's unstoppable power. He sometimes released prisoners to spread horror stories about his brutality. And when cities resisted, he would sometimes slaughter entire populations to send a message: surrender or face complete annihilation. These strategies worked so well that many cities surrendered without a fight. Genghis Khan established the yam long before modern communication networks. It was an early version of a postal system. It connected cities across his vast empire with a series of relay stations where riders could swap horses and travel great distances quickly. This allowed information, trade, and intelligence to flow rapidly, giving the Mongols a massive advantage over their enemies. It was one of the most advanced communication systems of its time. Despite his reputation for brutality, Genghis Khan allowed religious freedom in his empire, an uncommon policy for the time. He himself followed Tengrism, a belief in the sky god Tengri, but he welcomed Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, and others into his court. He even consulted religious leaders for advice and exempted religious institutions from taxation. His approach was practical. By allowing different faiths to coexist, he ensured stability and loyalty across his diverse empire. The Mongol invasions were among the deadliest events in human history. Some historians estimate that Genghis Khan's campaigns resulted in the deaths of 40 million people, wiping out about 10% of the world's population at the time. Entire cities like Nishapur and Merv were completely destroyed. But his empire also created a global trade network, the Pax Mongolica, which allowed goods, ideas, and culture to spread more efficiently than ever before. The Silk Road flourished under his rule, linking China, the Middle East, and Europe. Genghis Khan led from the front and fought alongside his men. During one battle against the Western Shia dynasty, he was seriously injured. Some sources say by an arrow, others suggest he fell from his horse. But instead of stopping, he continued fighting, and later took brutal revenge on the Xia, wiping out their entire civilization. His resilience in battle was part of what made his warriors so loyal. Genghis Khan died in 1227, but the cause of his death remains unknown. Some theories suggest he died from injuries sustained in battle. Others claim he fell from his horse or even succumbed to disease. The most dramatic theory states that he was killed while assaulting the Western Shia capital. His burial was just as mysterious. Legend says his followers killed everyone who witnessed his funeral procession and diverted a river over his grave to keep it hidden forever. To this day, his final resting place has never been found. The Mongol army wasn't just large, it was brilliantly organized. Genghis Khan divided his forces into units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000, allowing for incredible battlefield coordination. His warriors trained relentlessly in archery and horsemanship, giving them an edge over heavily armored opponents. He also used deception in battle, sometimes ordering feigned retreats to lure enemies into ambushes. His tactics were so advanced that military leaders today still study them. Surprisingly, Genghis Khan outlawed torture in his empire. However, his punishments were still brutal. Traitors and rebels were often executed in inventive and terrifying ways. Some were crushed under wooden planks so that no Mongol blood would be spilled. Others were thrown into boiling liquid or buried alive. While he forbade unnecessary cruelty among his soldiers, he had no mercy for those who opposed him. Genghis Khan was more than a conqueror. He built an empire that changed the course of history, creating trade routes, fostering cultural exchange, and shaping the modern world in ways few can match. But his legacy is a double-edged sword, one of both creation and destruction. His empire may have faded, but his impact is still felt today. What do you think? Was he a genius leader, a ruthless tyrant, or both? Let us know in the comments.